Previously on Jason Lives TV, Scully was sad and possibly out for vengeance. Joe was strangled by a masked maniac. Luke was poisoned by the masked maniac. Gav received a note saying he'd be next, and everybody, including Rocky, was suspicious of Scully. Stay tuned to see what happened next. The boys were once again back at the SB when we caught up with them for a few words. Gav, are you concerned about your safety this evening after receiving that threatening letter?
Yep.
Are you happy, Joe, to be playing at the Gershwin room this evening?
Yeah, hey, it's a Gershwin room at the SB. Who couldn't be happy about that?
Say, Luke, how are you feeling, and are you concerned about being attacked again?
You know, I was pretty shaken up after what happened to me at the last show at the Corner Hotel, but, you know, I've rested up, I've recovered, I'm feeling pretty good, I'm looking forward to putting on a good show tonight, and hey, Gav's the one that got the note this time, not me, it's his problem. As long as we have a good show, I'm happy.
Meanwhile, back at home base, Rocky kept close watch over Scully. There was no way she was getting out of his sight. Later after sound check, Gav and Luke stood on the balcony of the SB watching people being blown in the streets of St Kilda. By the wind, it was a windy day. Luke went to go deal with the major labels, leaving Gav alone and vulnerable. This opportunity was seized by the maniac wearing the iconic ghost face mask from Scream, who snuck up on Gav from behind. Gav tried his best to fight him off with his strong drumming arms, but was thrown over the balcony. Fortunately for Gav, his fall was broken by Joe, who'd been getting blown down below. By the wind, look how windy it is, folks. Gav, counting his lucky stars, rose to his feet along with Joe. Gav had come out of this ordeal completely unscathed. Perhaps the terror was now over. And before long, it was showtime. The evening shindig was a smashing success, and a jolly good time was had by all. It was also a time to celebrate, as the masked maniac's attacks on the band had failed, and now the terror was over. Or was it? After the show, as Joe went to exploit the lavatory, he reached down to unzip, but this time pulled out something bigger than normal. It was a note threatening a second act of violence against him, this time at the Cubby House in Moonee Ponds on Friday the 25th of October. Elsewhere, as Luke was engaged in a discussion about how ridiculous the ending to the TV series Lost had been, he was overcome with the urge to sneeze. As he looked at its contents in his hands, among the mucus he found that a note had popped out of his head. This note also threatened a second act of violence against him, this time at Idiotfest on the 26th of October at Deviate. Meanwhile, as Gav collected the last of the band's gear, he too found a note. Hoping it to be a letter of admiration lovingly scribed by a starstruck Jason Lives fan, he was shocked to learn that he too was now the recipient of a note threatening a second act of violence, this time at the Halloween show at the Cubby House on Friday the 1st of November. Upon arriving home, Luke was informed by Rocky that earlier in the evening, while consuming his dinner, he'd been watched closely and suspiciously by Scully, who made sure Rocky consumed every last piece. A few moments later, Rocky passed out for a number of hours. He'd been slipped a Mickey. Where was Scully during this time, the same time that the attack on Gav occurred? A couple of days later, the boys played a show at the Brunswick Hotel. A show for which, strangely enough, no threat had been made and no act of violence occurred. It was a welcome change for the boys. Now, with 3 further threats of violence, what will happen next? It's 3 times a horror, 3 times a suspense, 3 times a terror. Join Jason Lives for the Trilogy of Terror to find out the answers to these questions. Who is this masked maniac that's been stalking the band? And what level of involvement, if any, does Scully have? Come along to the Cubby House in Moonee Ponds on Friday the 25th of October. Then come along the following day to Idiotfest at Deviate on Saturday the 26th. Finally, the trilogy concludes once again at the Cubby House on Friday the 1st of November at the Halloween show.
I don't understand, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand, it doesn't